As local and global citizens, well-informed, engaged, and committed, we must ask how technology can benefit humanity. For example, how can technology help the world's poorest 2.5 billion people who live on less than $1 a day? Or overcome the fact that 82 of the 83 million people born into the world every year are born into poverty? Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations, expressed this imperative well. If globalization is to succeed, it must succeed for the poor and the rich alike. It must deliver rights no less than riches. It must provide social justice and equity to no less than economic prosperity and enhanced communication. The Center for Science, Technology, and Society, the host of today's event, is one of our 4 centers of distinction at Santa Clara University. These centers form the cornerstone of our strategic vision for the university. We envision that the centers will advance the university's distinctive mission and competencies, engage faculty and students from every major academic area, as well as experts and leaders in the community, form partnerships to provide leadership in addressing significant public issues, enhance student learning and faculty scholarship and educate the public, and contribute to our overall excellence as a Jesuit university.
The genesis of the centers was around the 3 C's: competence, conscience, and compassion. And Paul, I think, felt strongly that science, technology, and society was at the core of what it meant to be competent in this period in our history. That the interface of science and technology with society was fundamentally going to change and was changing the way we live, and most importantly, how we relate to one another.
And as I was thinking about technology and the future of technology, the Chinese character for crisis came to mind. The Chinese character for crisis comes from 2 other words: danger and opportunity. And it seems to me as we think about the future of technology, we have to balance two different things in one sense. So 3 words quickly are change. We have an avalanche of new technologies making great changes out there. The one thing we know is the constancy of change and the accelerating nature of change. And so change is going faster and faster and faster. That could fragment us all, or it could be an opportunity in terms of creativity and innovation. And so how do we balance those 2?
Paul's hopes around the technology and science was technology enables science to accelerate. And what we learn in science, it creates new capabilities in technology. So the coevolution is very rich with opportunity. As John Gardner once said, the world is filled with opportunities, brilliantly disguised as unsolvable problems. And Paul and John were very close. And how did I connect with Eric and Al? Well, Al and I go back to 1989 when he was acting dean of the business school and I was being recruited to be dean. And at the same time, a colleague, Pat Guerra, was working in the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which Al Bruno had headed prior to him, and Eric Carlson had come to Santa Clara. He was a 3rd employee in the Center for Science, Technology, and Society, and Al's always been an entrepreneur. He teaches entrepreneurship. It's in his blood. He constantly is thinking about how to take things to the next level, about the connection between teaching and practice and research. And so he's just been a natural colleague and innovator in this effort. A member of my advisory board, when I was dean of the business school, contacted me and said, there's somebody you should meet when you start this center. His name is Eric Carlson. And he was president of Ask Computer and long history with IBM, mayor of Los Gatos. A headhunter told me that this guy is the best ops guy, operations guy in Silicon Valley. He gets stuff done.
Having Eric involved has been very good for Jim and myself, because Eric is opinionated and stakes his opinion very strongly, and that allows Jim and I to sort of chip away at the edges and get to something that makes sense. Whereas we're not very opinionated, and absent an opinionated position, we would have been sort of a wishy-washy movement forward. So Eric's been sort of the steel rod in the evolution of the center.
What got me thinking was something that I heard from Al and Pat Guerra and Jim about, that they'd heard from the people who were winning the tech awards, which was, it's great to give us an award, but it'll be gone in a year if you can't help us figure out how to use it wisely to build a more sustainable business or organization. I don't know if they used the word business. But I thought, boy, that's the key, right? Because I'd worked in association with a number of nonprofits, all of which basically were scrambling year to year with a huge percentage of their time spent on trying to raise money for the next year and sometime for the previous year, because they'd gone in debt to keep going. And I thought the idea of trying to build a sustainable social impact organization was a compelling idea, that if we could figure that out, we'd have made a major contribution. So that's what got me hooked. It got me involved with trying to create the GSBI in a way that we could use what we knew here at Santa Clara and in the Valley in general, because that was one of the great things that Al and Jim brought to the center, was connections with the rest of the Valley, and what few connections I had. So by bringing together this group of people, not just the three of us, but a much larger group, to try to solve this problem of using technology and business insights to build sustainable businesses that made a difference, particularly for poor people. But in general, I think it was overwhelmingly a good idea.
I am together with some great people, great individuals who have taken a step of faith to turn an idea into some practical action.
He is particularly good at the conceptual aspect of the business and where it's going to go and all that. And when we got into the business model and kind of like, okay, now let's do the numbers of how that's going to go. That wasn't a part that he personally was used to doing. He would have other people do it. And so in this exercise, we said, no, that's not the way this works, Collins. You got to go back and do this. And in doing so, he was able to discover some real insight about his business. And it was delightful to watch him do that and watch him grasp onto it. And so this gives you an idea of, how can money really be used and what kind of changes can happen, what can actually be accomplished, which I find educational as well as inspiring.
The interesting thing about the contrast between what these entrepreneurs go through and what we go through in Silicon Valley, we have a very well-developed infrastructure in every sense of the word, right? From customers to, legal and engineering and operational resources. This is the most fertile place possible
in the world. Funds, not to mention money.
And money, right? It's so fluid here. And when you look at what these people do and the obstacles that they have to get over, right, overcome, and the dedication required to succeed, compared to what we have here, contrast is incredible. It's pretty inspiring, and you kind of, I guess we're going to complain less. In the early days, Jeff Miller and I would get together. We had a common entrepreneur, Collins, and I remember Collins showed up at Santa Clara, and we met him, and we started helping him work on his business. And Jeff and I kind of went aside and said, we have no idea who this guy is. We have no idea what he's experienced. We have no idea about culture in Kenya and the economics of Kenya. And over time, we decided that we really do need to get to know the entrepreneurs, before they get here. And so now we have an online component that we work with the entrepreneur for many months before they ever show up.
From February to August, there's an intense online, remote, but nonetheless, process that the mentors go through with the entrepreneurs. They have tons more information about their businesses, the mentors do. They're able to process it all. The entrepreneurs go through a series of exercises, if you will, and the mentors are able very early on to have communication with them. Oftentimes now, face-to-face over Skype or something like that. And so not only do we get, the mentors, get to understand the business much deeper and much better, you get trust built up really early. And so you can go back and forth and you can make lots of progress before they even get here. And when the entrepreneurs get here, it's like greeting a really old friend for the first time.
So I've been here about 6 years now. Before that, I knew almost nothing about social entrepreneurship, and what I knew about poverty was really limited to what I read in The Economist and Science Magazine. Being out in the field with social enterprises that have come through our programs, learning from the students who have engaged in action research projects with the social enterprises, what's become very apparent to me is this convergence between poverty, gender inequality, and climate change. And I think there's a real opportunity for Miller Center to address that by working with social entrepreneurs who are focused on creating resilience to climate change in poor communities and simultaneously economically empowering women. When I think in particular about the social enterprises that have come through our GSBI programs that focus on women's economic empowerment, then that's where I really see the disruption of unjust social equilibria. So an example is Solar Sister, which distributes off-grid energy solutions, solar power lanterns. And the women who are buying these are better off because they have higher quality energy. They don't get the side effects from kerosene lanterns. Their children don't get burned by overturned kerosene lanterns. And in the end, they save money. They're economically better off. The women who are selling the lanterns are also economically better off because they now have an income. And in many cases, they become the primary breadwinners in their families. And that economic empowerment shifts the social equilibrium from women being oppressed in many ways, doing most of the work, getting least of the income, to becoming empowered, that they make decisions. Their husbands now work for them instead of their husbands telling them what to do.
Visiting social entrepreneurs in the field is really awe-inspiring. They are the true rock stars in my book. But you have to witness their passion on the ground and look at the people they serve in the eyes to truly change your own soul.
So there were really two things that came together in the genesis of the Global Social Benefit Fellowship. The first is the fact that Miller Center is part of a university, and the primary function of universities is to educate students, to generate and share knowledge. And we didn't have a lot of real student engagement with social enterprises. The other thing is what's unique about Santa Clara, and it's the notion that we are trying to fashion future leaders who will accelerate social justice around the world. So when through a generous benefactor, Ann Bowers, who is the widow of Robert N. Noyce, the first CEO of Intel, wanted to honor Father Locatelli by making a gift to the university. She asked us to imagine ways that we could create what she called a transformational social justice learning experience for high potential undergraduates, regardless of their economic background. So what makes them special is that they all share the DNA of social justice. They all really want to make the world a better place, and they're coming from these different disciplines and working together and learning new ways to imagine creating social justice. They understand over time that it's more than just listening to people who are living in poverty or going and spending time with people living in poverty, but actually empowering people who live in poverty. Empowering women economically changes the equation. It's a much different model than charity. And so this common DNA for social justice makes me feel like they're a family, and I'm part of the family, and my hopes for them are that whatever they do in their lives, they'll carry with them this transformational social justice learning experience, and whether they become social entrepreneurs, whether they work in large corporations, whether they end up in government, with them they'll have within themselves the ability to affect social change on a large scale. What does it mean to be the Jesuit university in Silicon Valley, the world's most entrepreneurial ecosystem?
It means it's a tremendous opportunity, as well as an obligation that we make the most of the opportunity that we have. We can't pretend that we're in Iowa, but we're actually in a very important place, and there's got to be a reason why we're here at this particular time. Now that gets into a matter of faith, that you're here in a specific place at a specific time to accomplish something unique. And that's part of my perspective as a priest, as a Jesuit in the Silicon Valley at this university. We're here to do something very specific that others aren't able to do. And so we have opportunities that are incumbent upon us to actually take advantage of them and to make sure that we use our resources wisely and in conjunction with other people who help us accomplish much more than we can do singly. So that's why this network of other Jesuit schools is so important. That's why this network of mentors working with social entrepreneurs is so important, because it's creating a much broader effect, because we're rooted here and we take advantage of that opportunity.
Over the years, we have proven that mentorship works. And the way we have proven that is that, the Miller Center doesn't exist to make everybody just feel good. The Miller Center is interested in concrete, measurable results.
I mean, it's easy to talk about 160 million people in developing parts of the world that we've impacted. And that's fabulous, we have. We've also educated 600 entrepreneurs. Most of them are actually pretty young. They're gonna continue to do their businesses, maybe they'll do other businesses. We're gonna educate more. We've got 130 mentors. We've changed the mentors' lives. Okay, you've changed my life. We've got 75 Global Social Benefit Fellows. We've changed those students' lives. We always get 4 or 5 of them to present to us and tell us about it. And they are changed young men and women, and we're in tears. I mean, it's really powerful. And these kids, and I call them kids, these kids literally grow up, before our eyes, over about a 6-month period between a class on either end and then going and working with typically a partner, a Santa Clara student partner, in one of these remote areas. They do valuable work for the entrepreneur. This is not a vacation. And they live and work in areas that are unlike, for most of them, any place they've ever been before, with less resources and everything else. They really understand what it's like and the challenges of the entrepreneurs. But they come back even more excited and more optimistic than when they went. So we've impacted a lot of people, and that's just with the short-term impact we can see now. That impact has legs. The businesses have legs, the entrepreneurs have legs, the mentors do, the students certainly do. So we're going to continue impacting more, but we're going to get, the world will see more impact from those people that we've already touched. To me, that's the overwhelming accomplishment and the thing that I'm most excited about. One element of that is that we have created a worldwide network of entrepreneurs and mentors. We have inspired multiple universities to adopt the model of the Miller Center. So the degree to which we cast an increasingly bigger shadow on the world and we continue to be the model,
whereby other universities and institutions want to emulate, then we can grow exponentially. Because I know that if other institutions adopt the work that we are doing at the Miller Center and they use us as a blueprint, because I think we are far ahead of anybody else in the world in this regard, I think we can create a multiplicity effect in touching social entrepreneurs and creating financial enterprises that are financially viable in multiple countries that will succeed. So,
one word about our founding, a little story, since we're a little bit on stories. We were founded by 2 Italian Jesuits, and they really came to this country from Italy and ended up in the Northwest, where they were in mission territory evangelizing up there. And 2 of them decided that Gold Rush, California would be a lot more exciting to come down here and start a college in California. So they came down in the winter of 1849. And it wasn't until February of 1851 that they got the okay, and the bishop of then C was Monterey, sent them here to the mission to start a college. In that year and a half period, or year and a few months, they kept writing to Rome asking for permission to start the college. They never heard back from Rome. So on March 19th, 1851, they took over the mission, started the college, immediately enrolled students soon thereafter, and started teaching. Now there's 2 controversies around starting. Are we the oldest college university in California? Because UOP began, or then College of Pacific, what they did is they went and gave the state $20,000 and got a charter to begin teaching, but they didn't enroll students for 2 more years. Jesuits did not get that permission from the state, they just started educating students. So they didn't think too much about the strength of the state. The other thing is, the following fall, they finally heard back from Rome, don't start the college.
The speed of communication.
Thank God we did not have the internet at that time.